We're going to welcome in our first guest today. Gary Horton is the president of Erie's NAACP chapter. He's here today to talk about the MLK Day March and events. Gary, welcome. It's nice to have you today.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. You've had these marches for several years, and you've had them in the cold, you've had them in the snow, you've had them in the rain, but they go on every year, and you get a pretty big turnout as well.
And despite the predictions that the weather is not going to be favorable, we're hoping to have a big turnout this year also. If we look at the climate or the space that we're in today as a country, giving people an opportunity to reflect on Dr. King and the sacrifices that he made during this particular time is a good thing, I think.
Talk a little bit about what the march, it starts at Perry Square and then it ends up at the MLK Center. Talk a little bit about what that march symbolizes.
Well, this year we want our focus to be on youth. If you look at the challenges that youth face in our own community, too often all the attention is focused on young people that cause trouble or are involved in antisocial behavior. This year we're creating a platform for what we think are the majority of young people to be able to come out and have a march for peace. So it's our intent to put the young people up front. And we've reached out to all the schools, and the Erie School District is providing transportation for their students, and they're putting a notice out in all the schools and that. And we're hoping that we can get students that will come out despite the temperature and stand for peace or march for peace.
Yeah, that's terrific.
What do you hope those students then take away from the march once it wraps up?
Well, one thing is that we know that, I don't know what age you are, I was old enough when Dr. King was assassinated. I was 16, and so I remember that very clearly, the trauma that it had on young people in our country, and then the violence that took place in our community across the country. Schools were closed. Well, we're not in that space right now, but we do have a lot of youth violence, and not just across the country, right here in our own community. And we want young people to take away from that everybody can be great, anybody can be a leader. Here's a space that you can come to safely and not succumb to peer pressure and or to turn a blind eye to what you know some of your young people or peers may have, propensity to pick up or play with guns and stuff like that, but they come away from it with a greater awareness of the power that they themselves have. And that we think that if young people embrace this idea of peace in our streets, it'll be a lot more effective than us older people trying to say to them, stop the violence.
So the march starts Monday at noon, as I said, in Perry Square, and you end up at the MLK Center. What happens there?
When we get to the MLK Center, we will have a memorial ceremony where some of the young people will lay a wreath on a makeshift casket. And then we'll have a few speakers there, and we'll go inside the Martin Luther King Center, where there will be hot chocolate and a lunch for those that want to partake of it. And then we're going to have a message from Tyrone Clark, who's a local pastor. And we'll have performances by the Bayfront Dance Group. And we may have some other people from the community that will present. But it's an opportunity to bring them in out of the cold and to have an indoor celebration to culminate the march.
Yeah, and as we had said with a guest earlier this week, it's so important this time of year to pause and to think of Dr. King and his message of peace and love, and even if it's just for a couple of hours on a cold Monday.
Well, it's more important in our community, in our country today, than a couple of hours. We're at a crossroads where many people are talking about our democracy is on the line in 2024, and we need all people to recognize the power that they have and that they become informed about the issues that are affecting our country, that they will qualify themselves so that they can officially have a voice, and then they'll go and vote on election day. Dr. King stood and marched and fought for those kind of things, and so it's not just a one day. It's going to be a long time before we get to November and that, but we think hopefully this will be the start of encouraging people to remember the fact that our democracy is on the line, and It's a time for all civil rights heroes and wannabes to dust off their marching shoes and get ready to make the contribution that Dr. King would have if he were here today.
Gary, thank you so much for coming in today. We do appreciate it. Join in the MLK March on Monday.